one, action! Welcome again to another fabulous day of college class learning about science. I know I didn't let you know when I was going to live stream this, so I apologize. Things got a little crazy today, but happy President's Day for all of those of you who are off school and having a great day. I'm back with my fellow reptilian here. He still needs a name, so in case you have a great idea for a name for him, let me know. As always, this will get posted onto my YouTube channel. I've got a YouTube channel, which is so crazy. So feel free to send me ideas and all that fun stuff for the channel, and I will post videos as soon as I can. So here's to another great day. Today, we are going to learn about something that wasn't suggested. So if you suggested something, don't worry, I'll get to that. But there's no way I could do plate tectonics in 18 minutes. So today, I'm going to work on figuring that out. And today I'm going to teach you all about something very near and dear to my heart. Dun, da, da, da. Can you all read that? We're going to talk about icicles because they're everywhere right now. And we're going to lead that right into stalactites and stalagmites. Because did you know an icicle is actually considered an ice stalactite? Just found that out. We're going to lead into a little bit of cave formations afterwards. So we're going to be talking about these guys a little bit today. In case you didn't know, cave calcite, cave popcorn, all that fun stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about them, but caves are another video altogether. Hi, people. I see you there. Sorry. Thanks for tuning in for those of you who are here. So we'll talk about him in a little bit, but we're going to get back to our topic. We're going to start off with icicles. In case you didn't know, they're everywhere right now. We have them in Minnesota and Wisconsin. How are they formed? Well, obviously, first you have to start off with frozen water, like ice and snow. Most of the time you're finding these around houses and buildings right now. Then we have to have sub-freezing temperatures. How are we forming brand new ice with sub-freezing temperatures? Hold on. We need the sun. That thing right there. On a cloudy day, you're not going to get icicle formations. But on a sunny day, like we had a little bit of today, this is where you're going to get icicle formations. Then you've got to be able to move that water from a high to a low area. So start off with, you've got the frozen water, you've got ice, and you've got snow on your roof. Now you've got the sub-freezing temperatures, and you've got that sun baking down on your roof. How awesome is that? That sun is going to heat your roofing and roofing tiles, and it's going to melt that water. That water is going to roll down your roof, and it's going to cool off as it does that. There's going to be motion, it's going to cool off, and as it gets to the edge of your roof, it's going to start cooling down even faster. That wind that hits right on the edge of your roof, the wind that whizzes by, it's going to cool that water down, and boop, you've started an icicle. Now, these are not necessarily considered official stalactites and stalagmites, but that's okay. They're very cool. They're going to form slowly over time. So the more sun that hits your roof, the bigger these are going to get, especially if you have a lot of snow on your roof. And a lot of us do. If you've got great insulation in your house, you probably still have 6 inches on top of your roof right now. And that all might turn to this. So you got to be pretty careful. Definitely look out below the icicles, just like looking out above, because where the icicles formed, there's going to be a puddle of water and now going to be a puddle of ice underneath. You might actually get a stalagmite forming. And some of you are like, how do you know the difference between stalactite and stalagmite? Hold on, we're going to get there after we talk a little bit more about ice. So look out above and below. When you're looking out below, make sure you're not slipping and falling and tripping over the ice, but look out above as well. Just because those icicles look really pretty and they might be getting really big means they're really not that safe. They're only going to be held onto your roof for so long. You get a nice sunny day, those things are just going to come right straight down, possibly on top of you. Not very safe. So if you do have a house, for those of you kids who have houses and all your parents who are watching, or maybe not watching but will be watching, it's okay to take some of those down and knock them down very carefully. Just keep in mind they can be damaging. They're icicles. It's ice. They're like giant ice spears. Yeah, some of them are really small. They're really cute. But when they get really big, like the largest, there's actually a world's largest icicle. It was in Scotland. It was 27 feet long. Crazy. That thing is like 3 times the size of me. If that thing comes crashing down on top of someone, there's going to be a lot of damage done. It's going to be painful. So they can be damaging, and they can be damaging to property as well. So if they get really big and you try to knock them down, you might be doing damage to your house. So don't knock the really big ones down. Knock them down before they get that big. And also, they're not tasty. This is the adult in me telling you this. If you're a kid, you're probably like, icicles are the greatest thing ever. They're like popsicles, but they taste like ice and water. Yeah. But think about, this is the parent in me, think about where those icicles came from. They came from water on your roof. So think about all the stuff that was on your roof, bird poop on your roof, your ceiling, your roofing tiles on your roof. That stuff's not made of stuff you can eat. And now the water is soaking all that up as it's washing down on, to form into icicles. Don't eat them. They're so tempting. Make icicles at home. Make cool popsicle things at home. Don't eat these. They might look really good. Just don't eat them. All right. So that's icicles. Now, I'm sure you want to see some really neat ice formations. I'm going to sit over here for a second. I'm sure you want to see really neat ice formations because welcome to Minnesota and Wisconsin. We've got them everywhere. So in case you didn't notice or know, the ice castles moved from Stillwater this year to Excelsior, Minnesota. They are currently happening. They're huge, and it might give you some really great examples of man-made icicles. Yes, they made them on purpose. Also, in Sandstone, Minnesota, they have the Robinson Quarry Ice Park. It's a park literally devoted to ice. Very neat, and you can actually climb the ice. It's safe enough with specific equipment to climb the ice. They have ice climbing competitions there. And then finally, for those of you who know all about the Apostle Islands, the sea caves, they're not open yet, but the ice caves and the sea caves are incredible, and some amazing structures in there with icicles and formations. But wait, we're not done. There's more. We're now going to talk about the best part of this little video, cave formations. My 2 favorite. We're going to talk about stalactites and stalagmites. I need theme song music. Anyone got a theme song music? We should get some going here. All right. They are speleothems. I learned a new word today. I'm sure you all learned this new word too. Any formation in a cave is called a speleothem. Spele, the S-P-E-L, is actually from a Latin phrase that was stolen from Greek, meaning cave. So there's your grammar history right there, grammar teaching. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about these guys. We're going to talk about specifically, where's my picture? Here we go. I'll just sit over here. These stalactites and stalagmites are speleothems that are typically considered dripstone. Why? They form by the dripping of water off the stone, hence dripstone. There are many other types of speleothems, such as cave popcorn, flowstone, which is typically known as cave bacon, frostwork, boxwork. There's many more types. Today we're just going to focus on stalactites and stalagmites, but we can certainly come back to these. We only want to make this super short video, not like 2 hours long. We'll come back to them. So these 2 that we're talking about, stalactites and stalagmites, there's 2 ways to kind of remember about how you know the difference. The one way I like to remember that stalactites way up here on the top are holding tight to the ceiling. And that stalagmites might someday grow up and be big rock formations. Now, another way that I just learned today was that stalactites have a C in their word. So they hang from the ceiling. And then stalagmites oh, see, there we go, down here. Stalagmites have a G in them, and they are hanging out on the ground. G for ground, C for ceiling. Now, I'm going to move this over here. Oh, I can't find a spot to see you all. Well, this is what I got, I guess. All right. A stalactite in Latin, it comes from the Latin word stalasso, which means cave, stalactite hanging from the ceiling. Anyway, so you have the stalactite, stalagmite, and we're going to talk about how they form in a moment, but they're most commonly found in limestone caves. You're going to find these in lots of limestone caves all around the United States, all around the world. And if you're really lucky, they might someday form into a column where the stalactite and the stalagmite have now joined together. But how in the world do they form? I will tell you. Take a look at my fabulous little picture of me. I am sitting on by my house, and we are not getting rained on, which is awesome. Everyone else is getting rained on. Let's see. So, the water from a rain, so there I am. Water from a rainstorm rushes down through the ground. It finds little holes and crevices. Not really big holes like those are. Those are pretty big holes. Smaller holes than that, rushes down, and as the water seeps through the topsoil and through the bedrock, it actually picks up carbon dioxide from the air as it's falling, and starts actually to dissolve the limestone that's in the ground. The water actually becomes somewhat acidic, somewhat of a very weak acid, and it starts dissolving the rock as it flows down. And as it's doing that, it dissolves the rock and picks up carbon, picks up calcium carbonate from the limestone. And then when it finds some nice little pockets, well, the water does two things. One, lots of chemical interactions going on here. First, that CO2, boop, gone. It takes off out of the water. It evaporates out of the water, and it leaves behind the calcium carbonate, or the calcite. And as it does, it starts leaving behind little remnants of that calcite, which slowly grow over time, and the water washes away. Now, if there's not enough time for the CO2 to evaporate, the water's just going to drop down. The CO2 will evaporate when it hits the ground, and there really won't be much formation going up at the top part of the cave. You'll just have a lot more of the calcium carbonate left at the bottom, or that calcite. This is how those stalactites and the stalagmites form. The stalactites, a little bit of ring of that calcite gets left after every single drop. And a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until you start growing a stalactite. See, I caught myself. And whatever's left when that water drops down, if there's a little bit left, you're going to get the stalagmite on the bottom. Now, how fast do you think this forms? It's not very fast. It's going to take a long time. How slow can you grow? Well, a couple things you need to know. First of all, this is about 4 inches right there. 4 inches. Do you know it can take about 1,000 years? 1,000 years for a stalactite or a stalagmite to get 4 inches tall. I'm not going to be around in 1,000 years. It's just not going to happen. So every new cave formation that's starting right now, we're really not going to be able to see a difference between now and when we die. 1,000 years. So think about all the caves you've been in. Think about how huge those structures are. 1,000 years for 4 inches. Some cave formations they've used radiometric systems to measure how old these cave formations are. Some have been measured at 190,000 years. That's a long time. So what changes this awesome growth spurt of the stalactites and stalagmites? Well, two very important things here: people and the environment. One, you've got the environment. So if you have a limestone cave and say it's underneath farmland, the land is able to, the water is able to soak through, everything's fine. Say the farm gets sold and now you've got buildings being built and concrete and driveways and parking lots and there's gas stations going up and any change to that environment is going to change that groundwater flow into the cave. And that change could either increase the water or decrease the amount of water. When that water stops flowing into that cave, growth is done, completely done. Also, if there's too much water flowing at a time into that cave, those growths might also stop, because if that water is rushing so fast to get into the cave, there's nowhere else for the water to go, everything's concrete, well then the water doesn't have time to build up any of the limes. It doesn't have time to turn into an acid, doesn't have time to pick up the CO2, doesn't have time to dissolve the limestone. Then it rushes into the cave, doesn't have time for the CO2 to evaporate, to leave behind the calcium carbonate. It doesn't happen. So you have no cave, or at least you have a dead cave versus a growing cave. Also, what could happen is you have people. We love to go look at caves. They're everywhere, and some of them are incredible. We've got some fabulous ones here in Minnesota and Wisconsin. If you haven't been, you should go. Those caves, every single year, people touch parts of the cave that they shouldn't be, or you walk by and you rub elbows, or you get your shirt up against the cave wall. That instantly stops the growth. Instantly. No matter how good you wash your hands, especially this time of year, we're washing our hands like crazy. Doesn't matter. There is still oil on your skin. There's still chemicals or oils that are on your clothes. And as soon as that oil touches that fabulous, awesome surface of the rock, it immediately will change how that rock is growing. That oil will not mix with that calcium carbonate in that water, and it might continue to grow just in a different spot. That water might rush off somewhere else, but it will change the way that cave works. This, by the way, is that cave popcorn. Want to talk very briefly, not about the cave popcorn itself, but we could do that later. But when you go into a cave, this piece, obviously, you can see that right in here, this was actually broken off of a cave. That's illegal. Don't do it. 50, 100 years ago, people would go into caves, and their souvenir would be, oh, I'm just going to take this chunk. This is awesome. I'm going to take this chunk of cave. It's illegal to do that now. You can still find cave chunks. You can find stalactites and stalagmites for sale from rock collections, because they were from people how many years ago that went and bought this and then they don't want it anymore, or they went and they took it and they don't want it anymore. Buying is okay if you see it in a private collection. Don't take them from caves. Please do not. But people, back to the people, you will change the cave's environment. Even if you go in and do nothing, you'll still change it by walking through the cave. That's okay. They expect that there will be some change in public caves. Almost done, but I have two more things to point out. One, caves aren't just, there aren't just limestone stalactites and stalagmites, and there aren't just ice stalagmites and stalactites. They consider formations in lava tubes. They can form lava stalactites and stalagmites. And unlike the limestone ones, once the lava is through flowing, then they're going to stop growing. But they're considered stalactites and stalagmites, just not made of limestone. And also you can find this in concrete. If you have really old buildings, check basements of giant buildings when the floor is cement, if you get that runoff, if you get that water seeping through, it's going to, bring through some of those chemicals from the concrete, and it will actually start to form stalactites and stalagmites, really small ones, in concrete buildings. They're not considered speleothems because they're not coming from a geologic source, but they will form a lot faster because the water is rushing through at a much faster rate, and they can still form because of that chemical buildup. One last thing before we go, and this might be tough to see, but this is a stalactite formation from China. This was, I don't exactly know what cave this came from, which would have been the first thing I should have done. But it actually, and it's totally hard to see, but right in here, it's a hollow tube. So these stalactites, which were up on a ceiling, now they're sitting on a nice base so they don't break. All stalactites form as a hollow tube. They call them soda straws. And the water seeps through the center of the hollow tube. And then only when debris or some water impurity gets in there and it cuts that tube off, only then will the stalactite start growing around and make those huge, large stalactites that you typically see in a lot of limestone caves. But they really start off as very thin soda straw figures, hollow in the center, which makes them very fragile. And then they grow to those monstrous size stalactites when there's impurities in the water. So that is my very brief little lesson on stalactites, stalagmites, and icicles. Take a look at all your local caves. They're incredible. And this time of the year, a lot of them are still open. In the spring, they'll start to shut down because the water will rush in, spring thaw. So some of them are open now, but otherwise get in the summer. They're awesome. We will talk about caves later, but thank you for watching on icicles and stalactites and stalagmites, and go on outside and see if you can find any. Thank you for joining, and have a fabulous rest of your President's Day.